Thank you. Thank you so much, Kim, for inviting me, and thank you all for being here today. So I'm going to talk briefly about another very important issue within the Respect Life teachings, and that's, of course, the death penalty. California voters, for the first time ever, have an incredible opportunity. We have an incredible opportunity to say no to the death penalty and leave life in prison without the possibility of parole as the maximum punishment in the state of California. And that's with Proposition 34. A yes, as my teacher said, a yes on Proposition 34 vote on November 6th means we are saying no to the death penalty, and we are saying yes to life. My name is Ana, and I am the Assistant Campaign Manager for this statewide initiative, and I also am the Program Director at an organization called Death Penalty Focus, which the mission of Death Penalty Focus is to work with people of faith, to work with murder victim family members, to work with law enforcement, and to work with the wrongfully convicted to help educate California voters and people across the United States on the realities of the death penalty, and to offer up better alternatives that improve public safety, that hold offenders accountable for their crimes, and to make our society a better place. So I'm very proud to be here today. I'm very proud to represent this campaign. And I hope you all join me in supporting Proposition 34 in November. So I want to make sure that you all are completely informed about Proposition 34. So I want to just go over the four main points of the initiative. The first thing that Proposition 34 does, which is the most important thing, of course, is it's the death penalty off of the books in California. And it leaves life in prison without the possibility of parole as the maximum punishment in our state. The initiative applies retroactively, which means that all 729 people awaiting execution in California will have their sentences converted to life sentences without the possibility of parole. I just wanted to repeat that number, 729 people awaiting execution in California. California has the largest death row in the entire nation. We are double the size of Texas and Florida. I know, I saw a jaw drop. You're from Texas? Yeah. Texas executes people at a much higher rate than we do, but we send more people to the death row than Texas does. What that means is in the last 30 years, we have grown the largest death row in the nation, but we have only executed 13 people. 13 people. What that means is that death row inmates in California are more likely to die of old age than they are of execution. It's an absolute joke of a criminal justice policy. And so Proposition 34 seeks to shed a big light on this failed policy and to ask California voters to replace it with life in prison without parole. So that's the first thing that Proposition 34 does. The second thing that Proposition 34 does is it holds offenders accountable by requiring them to work while they're in prison, meaningful work while they are in prison, and a portion of their earnings will go into what's called the Victim Compensation Fund, which is a special fund in California that helps victims of violent crime. It helps people get jobs after they've lost a loved one. It helps people pay their rent after they've lost a loved one. I work with a lot of murder victim family members, and when you have to go through the absolutely horrific tragedy of losing a loved one to murder, their life is shattered. And the best thing that the state can do for folks who have just lost a loved one to murder is to help them get their life back on track, help them recuperate in whatever way is possible. And that's what Proposition 34 wants to do. We want inmates who are the worst of the worst, while they're serving life in prison without parole, to do meaningful work in prison, and for their earnings to go to help murder victim families. So that's the second thing the initiative does. The third thing the initiative does is it will direct a portion of savings. So when we end the death penalty in California, we will save a lot of money. I'll go into that in a second. Proposition 34 will take a portion of that money that we save, and it will direct it back into local law enforcement for the purpose of testing DNA evidence that is collected at murder scenes and rape deaths. And the reason why this is an incredibly important important part of the initiative is because right now in California, half of all murders go unsolved every year, and half of all reported rapes go unsolved. That's a terrifying statistic. That means that, I don't want to sound crass, but it means people are getting away with murder in this state. And I believe that the best way to prevent crime and to reduce violent crime in our communities is to catch bad guys and to hold them accountable for their crimes, and to remove them from the streets. And right now that's not happening. And one of the best ways to solve crime is to investigate and to test the evidence that we have as a result of the crime. And that's DNA evidence. That's the best way. And right now in California, our police forces are so understaffed and under-resourced that we literally don't have enough money to test DNA evidence collected at murder scenes. In Los Angeles County right now, they announced a month ago that they don't have enough money to process fingerprints anymore. It's not right. It's not what makes our community safer. So again, Proposition 34 will direct a portion of budget savings to go back into our local law enforcement to test some of the backlogged DNA. And then the fourth thing that Proposition 34 will do is it will save the state of California $1 billion in 5 years' time. $1 billion. That money will go back into the general fund, and it will be used for things like educating our children. It'll be used for things like providing services for the poor, for the blind, for the sick. These are things that we know make us a better California. And just a little bit more on costs. I just want to put this all in perspective. The death penalty was reinstated in 1978 in California. From 1978 until today, we have spent $4 billion to execute 13 people. And meanwhile, again, we have grown the largest death row in the nation. It's an absolute failed policy, and it's time to get rid of it. And now I just want to talk a little bit about who is supporting this initiative. And the first group I want to mention is a group that has provided incredible leadership, and that is, of course, the California Catholic bishops and clergy and people of faith from all over the state. This is a true interfaith effort. And the Catholic bishops serve on the executive committee of this initiative. They are providing a leadership role in the direction of this campaign, and they are at the table making strategic decisions. It's an incredible coalition that we work with. And this statement may have been read earlier, but I just wanted to read it again. This is a statement from the U.S. bishops. Ending the death penalty would be one important step away from a culture of death and toward building a culture of life. Some other people that are supporting this initiative are murder victim family members I mentioned before. People like Lorraine Taylor, one of my really good friends. She's a mom. She lives in Oakland. And in 2000, her twin sons, Obie and Obadiah, twin boys, born 6 minutes apart. They were working on Obi's car, fixing the engine or something, and somebody drove by in a drive-by shooting, killed them both. Lorraine Taylor lost both of her twin boys, who were only 20 years old, at the same time. The murderer who killed her twin boys is still at large. She still does not know who killed her sons 10 years later. And she is here to say, she offers her voice. I'm pointing because we have a video of her that I'm not showing, but she is lending her tragic story to California voters to say what murder victim family members need is closure in cases, resolution. They need to know who did that horrible thing to their family, and they need resources. So Lorraine Taylor is joined by 700 other murder victim family members who are supporting this initiative and who are lending their stories to this campaign. Another important group of people are people who are wrongfully convicted of murders, spend years in prison, and thankfully are found innocent. We have an incredible group of of exonerees who have the most tragic stories. One is Frankie Carrillo. Frankie Carrillo, at the age of 16, was sitting at home with his father, and they got a knock on the door, and the police, the LAPD, come busting in, arrest Frankie, throw him on the ground, and haul him away. He was being charged with a drive-by shooting, and he was convicted at 16 for a crime that he had nothing to do with. He was not a gangbanger. He was just a kid in Los Angeles. He spent 20 years in prison, at Folsom Prison up in Sacramento, fighting every day for his innocence. And it wasn't until he got the attention of a professor, a college professor, and he formed a relationship with this professor, and she believed he was innocent, and she was going to fight tooth and nail to get him out of prison. She worked with another lawyer who devoted her time and her own money to working on this case. And thankfully, just last year, in March of 2011, Frankie Carrillo walked out of LA County Jail, a free man, at the age of 37 years old. And today, he is one of the leaders in this initiative. He is talking all over the state. He's exhausted all the time. He is lending every moment he can to this campaign because he says he's an example that the system makes mistakes. And as long as we are making mistakes, we cannot afford to execute an innocent person. So, Proposition 34 is an incredible, historic initiative for California. And I hope you will all join me in voting yes on Prop 34. And I hope you will tell your friends and family about this incredible opportunity. Prisons, there's a lot of opportunities in prisons to work. And I'm going to start by saying not everybody that's in prison can work. Some people are too dangerous to work. Some people are too ill to work. So not everybody will work. But those who can work will be required to work. Work in prison, there's outside industries that come in, but there's also a lot of work to run the prison. Cooking, cleaning the sheets, mopping, everything to keep that community running and to make sure it's a working community. That's all prisoner work. No prisoner has ever escaped a level 4 or level 3 prison in California. So when these death row inmates have their sentences converted to life in prison without parole, they will be housed 100% of the time in a level 4 maximum security prison. And no prisoner has ever. No, they don't. No, they never. Oh, no. Sorry. They will not be going. They never leave the prison except for if they go to a hospital. No, they will not be going out to work. You're thinking of like much lower offenders that sometimes go out to work. They sometimes are firefighters and whatnot. That is not what's going to happen to these prisoners. They will work in prison.
It's the appeals process is a big part of that, and a lot of the, there's mandatory appeal process when you've been convicted of death row, so it's repeated and repeated and repeated, and it clogs up the courts, and it takes a lot of, and she didn't mention this time that she did in January when she did the presentation, but what will free up our court system to do a lot of other things. So it is a benefit, but that's part of it.
So everybody in California that is convicted of a crime has the same right to an appeal. It's one of our constitutional rights. Thankfully, because again, sometimes the criminal justice system makes mistakes. The big difference between a death penalty appeal and a life in prison without parole appeal is that a death penalty appeal is mandatory and it is completely taxpayer funded. So when you are sentenced to life in prison without parole, again, you have a right to an appeal, but it's not going to be on our dime. It's not going to be 25 years of endless appeals that are, again, all on the taxpayer's dime. That's what happens in the death penalty. The death row inmates are appealing their case over and over and over and over again. 25, 30 years, and we pay for it. So Proposition 34 will stop that. The leaders on the opposition are the District Attorneys Association, the Police Chiefs Association, the Sheriff's Association. You see a team? It's predominantly law enforcement that are opposing this initiative as a statewide association. But I should note that our side, the Yes on 34 side, has an incredible group of law enforcement, current and former members of law enforcement who are saying the death penalty does not make California safer. What makes California safer is in ensuring that our law enforcement have enough resources to solve crime and do their job. That's what makes us safer. So we have over 200, I think, right now, members of law enforcement who are standing up and supporting this initiative.
California doesn't kill anyone. Your Texas, why?
That's because in California, we are very, very concerned, as we should be, about executing an innocent person. And I say that because 141 people have been found innocent on death rows across the nation. 141 people. 3 of those people were in California. Those are the people that we found before they were executed. There have been others that have been executed that we know today are in fact, that were in fact innocent. And just for a little for statistics sake, for every 9 people that are executed in the United States, we exonerate 1 person. Just think about that. Let's apply that to flying on an airplane, let's say. If for every 9 airplanes we flew on, the 10th one crashed, would you get on an airplane?